Guys, if you've been around 22s for any length of time, you'll know that there's one thing, generally speaking, that you don't do on any 22 rimfire gun. And that is, well, let's hop to YouTube and do a quick scroll through here, see if we can find out what it is. That's right, dry fire. Dry firing a 22 is one of the things that you're not supposed to do, right? Oops. Okay, dry fired that one. And what about this Ruger Super Wrangler? Ruger lists in the manual that you can dry fire this, but I'll throw up some pictures here. There are quite a few incidents where people have actually damaged these by dry firing them. Maybe something like this. Or maybe you're one of the guys getting into the AR-22 platform as an easy and cheap way to do some drills and train without running the full cost of 5.56. I just dry fired that too, didn't I? Well, let me show you how I'm doing it. And for the YouTube manual viewer who is most likely going to be watching this video, there is no live ammunition anywhere in this video. I am in a private area and all guns are being handled in accordance with good firearm safety policies. The answer behind how I just did that is simple. Introducing the Reloading Craft's official new 22LR snap caps. And as you saw by that one here, not only are they bright orange, so they're easy to tell apart from live ammunition when you actually have snap caps in, as you can see here, they are also multi-hit rated in 22 pistols. Now you'll see here, safety's on there, safety's off there. I'm just gonna dry fire a bunch of times on this one. So we have a nice single action shot. All right, now your typical 22 snap cap alternatives on the market, i.e. using like an empty spent case, using a drywall anchor, something like that, within 1 or 2 hits, that material would have been moved out of the way and you'd actually be peening the face of your chamber. Now if we take a look here, gonna drop the mag on that one, and they eject nice and clean. Let me go pick that one off the floor. That tiny little squish right there is the only damage that happened from dry firing that snap cap. And of course, as this sits over a couple seconds, that's going to basically poof back out as the rubber takes back on its original shape. And moving to the 22 Revolver, you can see here, I happen to have a full cylinder of those guys, easily identifiable. Now for 22 Revolvers, I do actually have a slightly thinner rim model that will allow for easy rotation of the cylinder. For semi-autos, there is a full semi-spec rim thickness model to give you the most possible durability. In 22 Revolvers, you do need something I've found, at least with this Ruger Super Wrangler, that's a touch thinner. It's kind of mid-range on semi-spec. It's not the maximum allowed thickness, and it's not the minimum. It's right in between. Now on these guys, let me eject one of these out here. You can see here, still good rim thickness, just a tiny bit thinner than the others, and no visible damage from a full round through the cylinder. But the real test, of course, is the one that we dry fired through the AR-22. I'm going to do my best to try to catch this one as it ejects. And actually, let me set this down. That'll make it a little easier. And as you can see here, tiny divot towards the 6 o'clock portion where that firing pin hit, and I am running in this particular build a full strength Geisley G2S trigger with a mil-spec hammer spring weight. And these guys I found will hold up to multiple repeated hits with this particular rifle as well. So what are some of the other highlights? Well, they are great for function training. You guys can see here, I currently have, I think, 4. I got 4 of these guys here in the magazine. They will feed and chamber, just like any 22 round. They extract reliably and give you an easy visual indicator that you have a snap cap in the chamber. They feed nice through a magazine, and hopefully I'm in frame for you guys here. Let's just run through these guys as if I was doing a dry firing session. So if you want, you can do a tap rack. I'm actually kicked over my shoulder. You can run it from the front. Try to get it in view so you guys can watch me eject. And they cycle just fine. Let's do the same thing with the AR-22. Alrighty guys, here with the AR-22, I've got a full mag of 10 here, and I'm just going to do my best to kind of eject them towards you guys at the camera over there so you can just watch them eject, which means I'm going to kind of be facing this way. And you guys can see here, nice smooth chambering and easy identification in the chamber and in the magazine that you have, of course, snap caps loaded and not live ammunition. Of course, goes without saying, but I think I should mention it anyway, still treat these with the same rules of firearm safety that you would with anything else. Treat every gun as if it's loaded, keep it pointed in a safe direction, kind of baseline, and keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So if you're dry firing, side note, do so in a safe location. All right, we've got 10 snap caps here. I'm just going to basically dry fire through these guys and try to do my best to cycle them towards you guys over there. Drop on first one. And see the follower there, that's not a snap cap. There were all 10. Let's do the same thing with the Walther P22. Alright guys, picked up all those, and I officially have all 10 here in the Walther P22 magazine. We are going to cycle through them as well. First round chambered, again, nice easy visibility there with that bright orange. And we are just going to dry fire and cycle through all 10. I'm gonna stand to the side here so those kick over towards you guys. Let's do this. And of course, it doesn't really matter how you're grabbing the slide. I kicked him out a couple. I went over and just did a kind of run from the front like that. And a couple of them, I came over the top like that. They feed and function just like actual 22s would. And of course, being a nice bright orange does mean that they are easier to spot when they're laying in the carpet and they don't like to blend in. So what makes these guys different from so many of the other printed snap caps that you can find on places like eBay? Well, for starters, the majority of the ones that you're going to see listed for sale as 22 snap caps are in fact not actual snap caps. Now, the definition of a snap cap versus a dummy round. A snap cap is able to actually withstand the force of a firing pin. You can see your safety is off, so you know it's actually hitting that snap cap there. A snap cap is able to withstand the force of a firing pin actually impacting the snap cap itself. And you guys can see here, that guy took it like a champ. Now, by contrast, a dummy round is something like this. This is an A-Zoom 22LR dummy. And what this particular guy is a machined aluminum dummy round, which is designed for basically manipulation purposes only. So what you might use this one for is if you are teaching a new shooter basically how to load, how to actually chamber, and basically then how to like maybe do a tap rack. You might mix some of these guys in with live ammo when you're out training to train malfunctions and that sort of thing. However, if you were to actually dry fire on one of these dummy rounds, it is going to permanently damage that rim. And after a couple of those, that section of the rim is going to be shot. Eventually, this won't want to chamber properly, and it's really not doing the best job at cushioning your firing pin either. Now, alternately, you could use something like this, which is a empty casing. This is already just a spent casing, and you can see here by the rim that I've got one divot in there from it actually being fired. Well, what about using that? Well, for starters, if I put that into a magazine like that, you're going to see it's not going to feed and cycle like a regular 22 round would. So while you may be able to stick in the chamber and dry fire on it, maybe a couple times, it's not going to cycle through your magazine. So you're going to resort to actually taking that already fired case, trying to fish it in the chamber there, and then, forgot that one doesn't dry fire without the magazine in. You can dry fire on it. I only did 2 hits because I know these guys do not hold up to actual dry firing. And you can see there, it actually got stuck in the chamber because that rim is now deformed. And after successfully getting that one out, you can see we now have 2 divots on it. And that last one where I dry fired twice is actually quite deep and is almost all the way through the actual rim material right up here. So combine that with usually not being able to extract them properly, and with the fact that you can't cycle these like a normal dummy round, quite honestly, spent casings are the last resort in anybody's arsenal. And last but not least, in the options of popular snap caps on the market is this. And this is simply a yellow nylon drywall anchor, and these are one of the more popular snap cap alternatives these days. So let's see how it does. Got my magazine here. You'll note that does basically chamber up in the magazine like a 22 cartridge would, which is one of the advantages of using these compared to using like a spent shell or something like that. All right, you can see it in there. Is it going to chamber? It chambered and it's trying to extract. The rim thickness on these and the rim diameter is actually pretty close to a 22, which is why a lot of people use them. You can actually sort of cycle them. Now, if you stack a bunch of them in a magazine, because they have the ridges on the outside, they are not going to cycle the same way that actual 22 ones would. So we got our drywall anchor in there. Let's dry fire with that guy. I'm going to start with a single and a double action hit. Will it eject? Ejected. And herein lies the problem with using these guys as snap caps. And you can see there right at the 12 o'clock position, there is a nice deep divot in that. And if I spin this around, that pretty much cut all the way through that rim. And therein lies the downside to using these drywall anchors in place of a snap cap. They are basically the same thing as using a spent case, and that is you cannot multi-strike really in the same location on these until they will basically cut straight through, or like these empties will, they basically just get stuck in the chamber. Like I said earlier, a lot of the popular snap caps for 22s online, particularly eBay, if they're a 3D printed one, look at the material. Probably 99% of the time, you're going to be looking at one that is printed out of PLA or maybe even PETG. And while both of those are good filaments in their own right, they have one thing in common compared to the material that we use for these guys. And that is both PETG and PLA, when used in a snap cap, aren't a snap cap. They're brittle. And if you've printed one, or if you've ordered one that was printed and you go to actually dry fire on it, you'll know that it's basically going to either shatter or basically delaminate. The layers are going to pop apart the instant your firing pin hits that. And by contrast, these guys right here are printed out of a filament known as TPU. Now, what TPU is it's basically like it's a urethane. It's basically like a rubber material that is hard enough. They are printed out of 95A shore hardness TPU, and the whole purpose of that is to absorb the firing pin's impact while not causing permanent deformation on the base of the snap cap. Now, I will say these guys are intended for use in pistol if you have a 22 rifle, or if you have a 22 that has basically a extra strength hammer or striker spring, or a really sharp firing pin, that these eventually will chew up the rim as well. But it takes a lot more abuse than any of the conventional snap caps out there on the market. In terms of chemical resistance, of course, you get back from the range, particularly a 22, these guys get super dirty. Now, what do you typically do? You clean it. And that can be with any variety of solvent types or oils. And I am happy to report that I did a, I think, 11 or 12 day oil submersion test on these guys with a bunch of different solvents. In doing the oil and solvent testing, I actually used a prototype version of this in a different color. It is the same material, it's just a gray color. And I am using a 22 design that I found online to do the initial chemical testing. I will say that is not the final design that we end up going with for the overall shape of the actual snap cap. Of course, these guys here, as you can see, are modeled to 22 SAMI spec and are my own design. Without further ado, let's jump into the chemical testing portion. All right, I've got 6 of them here. And now I'm simply going to mark these guys, and we're going to be submerging the rim section here, as you can see, in each of these common cleaner solvents. 5. The last one's going to be C for control. So this one's not going to get any kind of chemical application. All right, now for each one of these, get you guys a little closer, I'm simply going to take whatever oil it's getting mixed with and pour some down here in the base of each of these little pockets. So there's some Lucas XD. And I'm simply going to take this guy and we're just going to set that whole rim area down in it just like that. And from here I sped this clip up for you guys, basically just taking every one of those particular cleaners or lubricants and just spraying some in their respective little pockets and setting the snap caps down in them. This little grease gun, I have Lucas Marine Grease. Yes, I know this is going to make a mess. There we go. Just in case you happen to have some grease on the inside of your Revolver. Smear it up nice. There we go. Of course, the grease would be number 5 right over here, but you can see those guys are thoroughly coated, with the exception of the control and their respective oils. Well, guys, it has officially been 11 days since we put these TPU printed 22LR snap caps here in their respective solvents, and all that's left is to take them out and get them wiped down. Now, I will say on this, as I wiped each one down, I was checking the rims just to make sure there was no visible degradation or any other defects. All in all, they came out quite well, and as you can see here, just finishing up the last couple. Now, the real test. How well do they hold up when we dry fire them through our Super Wrangler? So, without any further ado, let's do that. And let me zoom you guys out so you guys can see what we're doing here. All right. I've got number 1. This was from the Lucas Extreme Duty. Number 2, that's Ballastol. Number 3, that was the Break Free. Number 4, the Lucas CLP, and the number on this one is a little harder to see. Number 5, the Marine Grease. And C, which is our control. All right, so I have a full cylinder of snap caps right there. Let's just cycle through these guys. As you can see, there is nothing impeding the fall of that hammer. was one full round. Let's do another one. If I'm counting correctly, that should have been 12 hits. Now, let's just kick them out. I'll try to kick them out right there so you guys can see them. And there's all 6. Alrighty, so what do we have here? Let's put them in order. Well, that's number 1, so we're looking good there. Let me zoom in here for you guys. Of course, these are the test ones. The production ones are not going to have that seam. I was working on the programming to get rid of that. But as you can see here on the base, no deformation of any kind. So number 1 gets perfect pass. Let's see here, there's 3. There's 2. All right, so number 2, this is Ballistol. Wipe that off. And again, number 2 is looking great. I was worried, and I wanted to test by putting them all in the different cleaners here, just to make sure that they weren't going to soften the TPU. And if there's any solvents that you guys want to see tested, drop that in the comment section down below. Number 3, wipe that one off. And number 3 looks like it's doing good as well. That little thing you see there is part of that seam. Again, the final production ones will not have that. That's our control. There's number 4. That's right, because the numbers are kind of moved there. Number 4, also looking really good. And of course, that texture is just from the build plate on the printer. Last but not least, number 5 with the marine grease. And looking good on that one too. I couldn't even tell you where the firing pin actually even hit. And of course, our control. That's what we're looking at on the control. And that, guys, just gives you a little window into the oil and solvent resistance of the TPU filament that we are currently using to print these guys in. If you guys want to see these snap caps, I have some more of this very early prototype batch that I was using to kind of work out some of the kinks. But if you guys are basically looking for any other solvents to be tested, drop those in the comment section down below. Be happy to do that. Of course, these guys are at the moment the only 2 that I have to actually run the dry fire test on. I do have the rifle, but in all honesty, these are designed more for pistol use. You can use them for rifle, just don't hit the same spot of the rim over and over and over again in a row with the rifle. You may end up actually cutting through it, just because typically rifles have a lot stronger hammer springs. So just something to be aware of on that front as well. And that about wraps it up for the chemical testing portion of the 22LR TPU snap caps. So whether you're looking to improve your 22 pistol handling skills at home, whether you're working on your 22 precision fundamentals, or maybe you're looking at getting some more trigger time before competitions start when the weather gets nicer, hop on over to the eBay store if you're looking to pick these guys up yourself. Of course, we are currently selling them listed in 10 count packs. That should be enough for filling out a nice magazine or an 8-shot, 10-shot revolver cylinder, whatever you guys have. Of course, there's 2 varieties listed at the moment. You've got the standard rim thickness, which is these guys right here. And you also have the revolver rim thickness that are designed to allow easy free rotation on a revolver cylinder such as this one. Links to all those guys can be found in the description down below. If you guys have any questions, any comments, or if there's anything else you want to see information-wise on these guys, feel free to drop it down below. This is something that I've had in the works for quite a while. Excited to finally bring these guys to market. Thanks as always for watching us here on the Reloading Craft channel. As always, stay safe out there and keep on reloading. And sometimes that means reloading your 22 mags with some of the new TRC 22 snap caps. Thanks guys, and we'll see you in the next one.